G'day, I'm Peter FitzSimons. Have mercy on me, I'm following Will Anderson to the stage. It's not easy, and I'm not nearly as rough as I look, but I'll do my best to talk about Australian storytelling in the digital age. The first thing I want to say is, I love Australian stories. I love the line from Mark Twain. He said, Australian history is exotic, it's unimaginable, it reads like a novel, but it's all true. And there's no better place to be talking about the virtues of the Australian story than right where we are met. Museum of Contemporary Art, we all know the story. Captain Cook, Captain Phillip came through on Botany Bay, hated Botany Bay, came up here, came into the harbour. He wrote the immortal lines, I have discovered the finest natural harbour in the world where 1,000 ship of the realm can sail in full security. Right here is where the first settlement started, where they, I think it was 1,019 convicts, all of them male, cut down the trees, carted the woods, carted the water, planted and so forth. On February 6, 1788, the best of all possible things happened. A ship filled with convict women arrived, 296 women. You had 1,000 men that had been without women for 9 months. You had 300 women that had been without men for 9 months. Everybody got extra servings of rum, and as they were unloaded, the obvious happened. They went at it, and as they were going at it, knocking back the rum, dancing around the fires, cavorting, the biggest storm anybody had ever seen, and these were people that across the seven seas, blew up. The rain fell, the lightning came down, the thunder. The preacher on the ship with convict women, watching what was happening on the shore with his telescope, wrote, such scenes of whoredom had never I seen in my life before. I prayed that the good Lord would smite them down. And sure enough, just before 1 a.m, a bolt of lightning came from the heavens, hit a gum tree, split it asunder, the branches crashed down, killed 3 goats and 4 pigs, and still they went through the night. And this is holy ground, sacred ground where we are now met. For me, the first time, I suppose I'm telling storytelling from the point of view of somebody that puts the stories together to try to work out what happened. For me, the moment of understanding of how extraordinary Google and all the rest of it could be, I was writing a story on Les Darcy, the great Australian boxer, our version of Muhammad Ali of nearly 100 years ago, the great Australian hero who didn't go to the First World War and became a pariah, but it was a fantastic man. One of his best mates was a guy by the name of Eric Metcalfe, and they'd been boxing together. Eric went away to the war, and I was sitting by my pool, and I just thought to myself, I wonder what happened to Eric Metcalfe. I wonder what happened to him in the war. And I just flicked an email to my researcher in Canberra, Glenda Lynch. 1 minute later, it came back, the PDF thing, the doco, whatever that thing is. I pressed Control P, print, and out from the printer, by the time I'd got to the house, came the 99 pages of his war record dossier. And I found, to my amazement, he died on the 7th of August, the Battle of the Battle of the Neck at Gallipoli, which was the Peter Weir film, which had 4 waves of 200 soldiers each, running to their certain death straight into the machine guns. Now, the detail that was there, I wondered at 3:32 p.m. what happened to him. By 3:45 p.m, I was reading the account of the Sergeant Major, how the shrapnel had taken out his jugular, and he jammed his hand there to try to stop the blood flow. He died in 30 seconds. Everything about that man, now all of that information had previously been there, had been down there in the archives of the War Memorial, and I could have gone down to get it, but I wouldn't have, because I didn't have the 6 months necessary to find it. But in the digital age, suddenly all of this extraordinary detail was so available. At the moment, I've just finished my book on Ned Kelly is pretty much released today. And so right there, the doyen of Kelly writers, a guy by the name of Ian Jones, fantastic man, 85 years old, first started researching Ned Kelly when he was 12 years old by going to the State Library of Victoria as a 12-year-old and thumbing through the accounts of the Royal Commission into the Kelly outbreak, 1,095 pages, extraordinary document, but that's what he would do at 12 years old. Here, in the 21st century, all of that stuff, so much of the Kelly stuff is there, it's available, you get it in one big document. So to try to work out what happened at Stringy Bar Creek makes your head hurt because there are so many different accounts. But there in the Royal Commission document online, you can go to each account, and start to put it together to work out exactly what happened. I work with a lot of researchers, so I work with 4 or 5 researchers and put them on specific things, and I send out the document to them with the question of, what happened here, how does this work, can you get me that from the State Library, blah, blah, blah. The Kelly world is filled with experts, most of whom hate each other. And there is only one person, and this is the thing that most staggers me on the subject we're on now. They have their deep divisions about what happened, exactly what happened, and there's sort of two camps, and then sometimes there's 10 camps. And there's only one person who is well above everybody else, who all of the other researchers say, well, actually, she's the one. She knows more than any of us, and she's the arbiter when they're having a dispute. And her name is Sharon Hollingsworth. Where does she live? In a trailer park in North Carolina. She's never been to Australia. She's barely been out of North Carolina, but she is the world expert and fantastic woman, extraordinary knowledge. When I sent her my copy, my manuscript, it came back in 3 days. She'd found every mistake that all the other researchers had missed and all the other writers had missed. And how can she do this? Obviously in the digital world. No, she's never been to Glenrowan, she's never been to Greta, she's never been to Beechworth, never gone out of North Carolina, and yet she is the world expert. Without it being in a digital age, it never would be possible. I live on my stories. I want my stories to feel like novels. So I want them to feel like a novel, I need the detail, the fine detail that cuts an account from, and then he, to make the reader, to get the detail, to make the reader feel like they're there in the moment. So when I wrote my book on Mawson, it's all very well to say it was cold, it was 40 degrees below zero, but what does that mean? But if I tell you that it was so cold that these sailors would love going down to Antarctica because they didn't have to shave, they simply brushed their beard and the frozen hairs would all fall off and they were perfectly clean shaven just by doing like that. That's cold. My favourite detail in Ned, again, which I found online, and it's all there and it's all documented, when Ned is taken in Glenrowan and the four police jump on him and he's there and he's wrestling, and then one of the police lines up to kick him in the groin because Ned had killed his best friend. Lines up and does kick him in the groin, not realising that he had that the armour was still there. It broke his foot and sort of hopped away. They take Ned to Glenrowan Station, and Ned's there and he's got his big beard and he's got his handcuffed hands under the beard, and he's trying to. He's bleeding from 26 pellets in his legs, and one of the guards has got some brandy, and he says, "Would you like a sip, Ned?" And Ned says yes, handcuffed hands on his beard, and they bring the brandy bottle down to his lips, and he guzzles. They take the brandy bottle away, and the drops fall down onto his big beard, and he gets his handcuffed hands under his beard and lifts it up like that and licks the brandy drops off his beard. That's the detail, that's the killer. With that detail, I can make the story, my notation to my researchers is L&B, L&B, L&B. Live and breathe, live and breathe, live and breathe. The details to make the story live and breathe. And so many of those details are there. They're there online. That whole thing trove, the wonderful people at the National Library who take pretty much every newspaper there ever was, and you dig it up online and suddenly there is the account. The other impacts that it's made, I suppose, are on the selling of it. E-books, I don't pretend to understand e-books. All I know about e-books is that I don't get as much money as I get with real books. I think you get your e-books a lot cheaper and I don't get nearly as much money. I thought our man Will, backstage, I think he's the world or Australia's Twitter champion. I think he's got something like 400,000 followers. I thought for 5 years Twitter was a wank. I just thought total waste of time until my publicist at Random House, Perry Wilson, said to me last year, it will sell books. Bingo. I couldn't say exactly how many followers I've got now, but I think it's 29,138. And I love it. I now get the whole Twitter thing. If all of that is the good news, I think the bad news for those of us who make a living out of telling stories is it's hard sometimes for us to compete with so much for the younger generation. I'm the father of two beautiful children and one other. I'm the father of 3 beautiful children. I think the older one is now getting back into books, but with my other 2, without giving away personal details or anything like that, but Facebook, I think, is so alluring to them. There's something called Snapchat. The texts are constantly going off. And I think in the current generation, the attention span required to go through a long book, for the moment, I don't know, maybe it's just the experience with my kids, but it's not as strong as it was for me. I just buried my book all summer holidays and just read and read and read. And I do think that most of my books now are probably it's not selling so much to the social media generation, because that is so alluring to so many of them. And don't get me started on gaming. I'm doing Gallipoli at the moment. And again, to wrap my head around, Will was talking about Edinburgh, not knowing anything about Edinburgh. When I first started doing it, I just couldn't work out where's Anzac Cove, where's North Beach, where's Cape Helles, where's Bull Air, how does the peninsula work? And then the staggering thing, the whole Google Earth thing, that you can actually look at the mountain, you can come back and get in my head. And what it means, so much more than a mere map. To actually be able to look at it, to look at specific sites, work out where the gullies were, where they ran, where the neck that I described, how it all works. Anyway, that's pretty much it for me for storytelling. The only thing I'll say, I don't want to hijack this occasion and beg you all to read my books. I seriously, hand on my heart, dib, 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 dob, 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 hope to die. I don't care whether you do or don't read my books. All I care is that you buy my books. Thank you. Nice to talk to you. Bye-bye.